Okay, if I position these just right, about midway, USS Midway from the Middle Earth Premium Series way. Okay, that didn't really work out, but you know the point. Hey everyone, and welcome to Groove Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderly Cone, and in this episode, we're going to be attempting to build one of the new carriers from the Metal Earth team. This one looks quite difficult with all those little planes and of course that command center with those conjoined details. What are the tricky bits going to be? What tools are we going to need? And how does this whole thing go together? These are great questions, and we're going to get the answers. Let's get down to the workbench and open up our package. Join the models.
And boom, there we have it. All of our pieces needed for our first page of the USS Midway. Now, the first thing we're going to be doing is grabbing a very small part here, and we're going to be creating kind of a cylindrical piece with a little bit of a shelf, and I'll show you kind of what I mean by that. Now, normally, I would try to wrap something around this, and I think I have a tool that might be the right size. Let me see here. Here we go. The old school hand mandrel here. And we'll start big. I'm going to try to go for the center of this little circle here. And that should give us a pretty good understanding. Actually, I'm going to go a little bigger first. And then we'll... this is really hard to hold on to. I'm not going to lie. These gloves are slippery today. Let me do this. All right. Again. And we want to keep the tails there straight. Now, that looks pretty good, actually. Okay. And now, I'm going to use these pliers for a moment here. And now what I'm going to do here is just kind of bend this little guy here. Whoa. Okay. Okay. Let's take our tweezers here. Yeah, this is a difficult piece a little bit because it's so thin. And we're going to keep this straight for right now. But we're going to pull it a little tighter. That looks pretty good. Let me hold it up like this so you can kind of see what I did there. But there we go. Let's take this right here, make it a little sharper. And make that like this because we want a straight edge. And I'm going to go back to my pliers here. I found that in the Ghostbusters video when I started using the pliers, it was actually really good for some of these smaller details. There's a little piece right here on the back end. And I want... Wow. This metal is so different and this piece is so small. That's actually pretty good to what I wanted. When we put it onto the ship, I'll be able to get a better understanding of how I actually want it to go on there. But for right now, Mr. Boba is invading my desk. He was up here already, and he just decided to take a little nap here. And I was like, you know, you're on my pieces, buddy. And he stayed there, little dude. Anyway. All right, now we got this here. We're going to place it right there for right now, being very careful not to squish it too much. We don't want to have any squishing effects there, okay? So we're going to leave that right now, and then we're going to come over to this little guy here. All right, and now this one, we're bending into a kind of a shaft. My side of my tweezers here are probably the best for this. These are my tweezers. We're going to go right here. Let's go down a little bit, actually, right about there. Okay. Make sure it's nice and flat on the tweezers, but we want to make sure we just get the edge. It's kind of the hard part is you kind of have to get just the edge in there. Come to the other side, same thing. You can try bending it in one go, but I really don't recommend that. I recommend actually grabbing a piece here and kind of using the tips of the tweezers as like a little bit of a braking piece to kind of help you guide it how much you're actually supposed to bend this part. And you can worry about making sure that it's kind of all nice and lined up after. it's such a small piece that you really won't notice the warping too much on this piece. But if you want to minimize warping, that's the best way of doing it, is doing it slowly. So even this top piece is still not bent enough. So I have to come back here to the top, and I'm going to just kind of do a little thing like this. And then I can squish them together, being very careful not to over bend them. Okay, that's the secret here. We're going to bend them, but we don't want to bend them too much. If you bend them too much, you can see how we get some warping right now. We can straighten it out pretty easily. It's mainly on the corners there is where the paint came off. Now there's a little upper deck here, and we got to secure this first. So we're going to grab our little part from earlier here, and we're going to attach it on. And we're going to give this a little twist. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now I know it looks a little bit kind of weird, but promise you, once we put it onto the ship, we'll be able to correct this detail and make it look even better. So there we go. That looks pretty good. It's going the right way. And now we're going to attach this onto our main piece here. And this gets attached more towards the front. And these guys get a healthy twist, so we're going to do that, making sure that we alternate our twists. We don't want them to go the same way. There we go. And again, if we need to, we can make some adjustments now, or we can wait till a little bit later. I think it's best for us to kind of wait right now because we don't want to make this metal too weak at the top here and have it snap off. So we're going to avoid that by not playing with it too much, but still continuing on with the build. It looks pretty crooked there, though. Let's fix that up. Nice and good there. Yeah, there we go. That's a little better. Okay, I like that. That's good. All right, now that we have this piece here, we can add another little kind of smaller piece. I think it's right off the bat, it always starts us off with the smaller pieces, but that's okay. We like a challenge. Making sure we keep the painted side towards the outside, because that's the part we're going to see. We're going to bend these little leaves here. Okay. Last little leaf. There we go. We made our nice little box, and now we attach this at the top here. These guys also get a twist, so we're gonna make sure we're alternating them. So we turn one to the left, turn the other one to the right. That's the key there. That's a nice little piece there again, and we can kind of make it exactly the way we want it just by kind of giving a little bit of a twist. I think that looks great. Okay. Now let's put this down. Now this one's a lot easier to do because all we're doing is just grabbing the tabs and kind of turning them in. So we're going to grab this guy here, 90 degrees, go the other side, 90 degrees, just like that. And now with the long piece here, we're putting that down. We're going to guide these two tabs into their place. There's one. I don't want to squish this because it's supposed to be a 3D detail, so. Okay. Now we're going to take this here. Same thing as before. Alternate the bending. There we go. There we go. Still a little crooked, and I think it's because I didn't get enough of that tab there. And that's why it's so important to make sure that when you're bending these pieces, you get as much of the tab as possible in your tweezers or in your pliers as possible. Let's put this to the side. The next thing we're going to be doing is another box here. Same thing as before. We want to make sure that we bend the box with the paint on the outside. And if we bent this correctly, it should actually go into spot really easily. And there we go. Boom. Awesome. That was a really easy one to attach. But I don't want to jinx myself. The next one we're going to be doing is kind of done similar to what we've done before. Sorry about the word set. Jeez, sorry about the word salad there. Now this time we're gonna go right to that little notch right there, and we're gonna bend it 90 degrees, like that. Same thing to the other side here. This paint is chipping very easily, so I gotta be very careful with this. This is actually a first time me seeing this. Most time, Metal Earth models are some of the best ones for keeping their paint. There we go. Okay. That was a mess up. Okay, and now with this one, we need to do something like we did in the beginning. We're going to take this and we're going to make a circle. We want to go kind of in the middle, and we're going to work our way down to the proper size. And this just helps keep everything really nice and uniform. This paint is coming off so easily, though. It's a little concerning. Yeah, I just chipped a whole bunch of paint there. That's really unfortunate. That's okay. We can touch it up a little bit later. This little circle piece here. Any cameras, bro? There we go. Very simple, nice little ring going in there. Now we need part 8, which is like a little balcony. It's kind of cool though, if you ask me. Whoops. We are all Butterfingers. Take this here, bend that up, grab the front here, bend this up as well, and then come back to the other side, bend that up, boom. Very cool. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that this box is completely closed, because there was a tab right there. I remember seeing that and wondering, like, where was that supposed to go? Yeah, I think we're just over. I see it though. It should be good. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach the one tab that's very hard to get in first. I'm going to bend this one just a little bit. And let's see if we can get in here. And there we go. Nice little balcony installed there. Not too bad. Not too bad. And now we got to build a very interesting part here. I think it looks interesting at least. Wrong one. This guy right here. And it has a lot of little tiny details. So let's bring back out our little pliers here. And what we're going to do is take a moment to observe. And I think it goes something like this. Okay, and we're going to bend these guys down here. I need to visualize this a little better. So I'm going to bring this right down. There we go. And these guys here get bent down. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and we're going to start by... I should maybe grab this little guy here first. Okay, there we go. And now let's finish up the formation there a little bit. Push this in. Okay. Yeah, alright. And then this goes... Alright, now we're going to take this little bottom piece here. And again, if everything lines up correctly, you know that you did a good job. But we want to make sure that the paint is on the outside. So that's important. And there we go. All right, that little piece there is on. Not too bad. A little hard to get that little edging done, but I think we can maybe straighten that out a little bit better with our pliers here. Actually, you know what? That actually looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Okay, let's move on to our next step, which is kind of attaching some more ribbon details. This is part 11 and 12. Now, the first one, we need to do a little interesting bend with it. And then the second one, we don't need to do that. So we're gonna bring both over here. One of them is white, the other one's black. Or I should say mostly white and then mostly black. Now, part 12 is actually attached first. So what we'll do is actually form this one, and then we'll do the other one. Pliers here.
just grabbing that little tiny edge and I'm bending it down. There we go. It's about 90 degrees. There we go. And now we're going to take these tabs and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to kind of bend them 90 degrees just like that. Oh, didn't work. Let's try it again. You know what? We're going to need multiples here. So let's see if I can grab it like this. You know what? It would have been actually a little easier if we would have bent the sides last. There we go. Move down the line here, right there. Same thing, just kind of push on it a little bit. And now there's a little spot here that's supposed to have like a little U in it. So we're gonna grab our mandrel again. And we're going to do our best to set that right in the center of where we're supposed to have this little bend. Which is right on that little dot right here. Maybe if I start a little bigger. Go. Now I'm going to take this little back area here. This is finicky. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little worried about how thin the metal is. And especially after our Ghostbusters build, I'm a little worried that I'm going to break this. So I got to be really careful. I want to maintain that circular shaping that I did there. And I'm trying to straighten this out again. So you can see that, like, I definitely got the circular part, and that's actually not too bad. It's not too bad. Not too bad. Let's see how this goes on to our little area here. And then we gotta do the same thing for the other part, which I think is gonna be a little easier because it goes in the middle as opposed to one side, so it's a little easier to kind of gauge that kind of stuff. Let's go, and this one goes on top, right underneath that little L here. And it goes on like these. Okay, flip this over. And we're gonna do our best here to make sure that these are connected the best we can, because we can actually straighten out that detail once we get it in place. But we have to make sure that the tabs are properly secured. Otherwise, it will be very hard to correct this detail. So that actually looks pretty good. There's only one part here near the end that looks a little squished. So I'm gonna see if I can kind of pop that out just a little. Might need to use my pliers here. It's a little squished here in the corner, more than I would want, but it's all right. Let's go ahead and put this down here, move on to our next little spot. So now that we know a little bit about how this ribbon should be done, I think that this one's done a little bit different than the previous one, but not incredibly different. There's no like little bottom piece here. So instead, we're gonna go right to the side. Actually, you know what? Before we do any of it, let's just go ahead and format center. So make sure we get right in the center there. You'll see on the back of this part here that there's these two little lines. Now that I've squished it, it's kind of hard to tell, but there's these little lines. You can see one right there and one right there. So that's kind of like where you want to be. Okay. So again, trying to maintain it, but also bend at the same time. There we go. Sorry, the autofocus is really killing me in this build, isn't it? There we go. And now that we have this, we can go over to these little tabs here. We can bend them back. Right on that little line. Again, what you notice on the inside. I'm gonna take it. You can also see where the paint changes a little bit here. Why are you out of focus? Okay. There we go. Awesome.
Now we're going to take this. And we're going to move these into position just by placing them inside of their holes. I don't know why you're not wanting to go in there. You're right lined up. And give these guys a nice little twist. I wonder why this had to be done first. I wonder if something would have gotten in the way. I'm not entirely too sure, but something's up with that. Anyway, we got that in place. Now we can move on to step 13 here. This might look a little bit familiar. Okay. Let's bend these little side guys down here first. Okay. And now we're going to bend this kind of backwards until it matches. And now these little side pieces here get bent down to the side. Okay, there we go. And now that we got this little piece here, we're going to put that on the right-hand side here. You know, I will say this metal has changed quite a bit. You got to be a little bit more careful than you used to be. You know, back in my day when building metal models, you didn't have to be all Mr. Ginger-like. You could be a little bit more heavy-handed. Nowadays, though, these models done changed. Now that we got this little cockpit here, we can move on to the next section, which is going to be kind of interestingly bent. We kind of have to take this here and we have to fold it over and then attach a little bit of detail to it. But first, let's take a little gander at that little piece that we have to bend. It looks like a these. And what we need to do is shape this. This is actually a pretty easy shape to follow, especially if you've been following some of the other ones we do. Just keep in mind that there's actually 2 stages to each leaf. There's like you bend it halfway, and then you're gonna go about halfway down and then bend it again. So if we look on the inside here, you can kind of see that a little bit. They gave you a little bit of an etch on the inside of where that secondary bend is. So you're gonna go right up to the top leaf here. I'm gonna go right to this one. Okay. We're gonna bend it, and then we're gonna go halfway, and we're gonna bend it again. And you can see how that little mark is there, right? Same thing here. And we're gonna match the details the best we possibly can. Okay, there's 2 pieces. Again for the third here. Like that. And we're gonna push this in so it meets the other details. You might actually find to bend the first piece down on the back side here, might be easier to do that and then push these pieces into place just because of how it gets at the end. You don't want to accidentally squish any of the little petals that you've already bent. Okay. Not bad at all. All right. Now, let's grab this little piece here. And this goes try to get that 90 really clean. I want a really clean 90-degree bend here. So now we're going to bring this guy like these. There we go. Again, trying not to squish any of that ribbon detail is kind of hard, but we really got to try. And now, just like we did with the other detail here, we gotta do the same thing with this side here. So we're gonna bend. This is so difficult. Okay, something like this. Shoot, we're gonna get this really weak if we're not careful. Okay. Luckily, the secondary leaf bends actually really easily, so. And we can connect these together. It's gonna be like this though, regardless. We have to put it like this. Okay, one tab side in. I knew it was gonna break. Okay, so at this point you're seeing me pointing some light on this little piece, and that's because unfortunately, just like the Ghostbusters model, when it came to actually pressing these two pieces together, the little arm broke off. I'm telling you, this metal seems to be a little thinner than normal, so if you're trying to do this with no UV glue or none of the, so if you're trying to do this with very minimal problems, I'm telling you right now, you're gonna have to go very slow and kind of preform all these pieces before even going anywhere. That little piece right here is gonna break for a lot of people. I can already see it happening. And if you're wondering how to fix it, the best way of doing it is with some UV resin. It's a little pen here, you put a little bit on top, and then you put the light on it just like this. And that makes it really nice and hard, and it goes on pretty much invisible. I did put a little bit on here more than I probably should have, so I do have a little bit of a glisten, but that's okay. But this will allow us to be able to kind of move things again, and we can always reform and reshape and get things looking nice and straight, just like that. I like it. And we can, of course, because this metal is a little bit more, oh, so it popped off right here, and that's okay, because we can reset it like this. And we can actually take off the little bit of glue there. Okay, nope. Okay. That is why I love this stuff. That is why I like it. You see how easy, like I was really holding it on there for a moment, but we can just kind of keep it a little bit more curing time here just to make sure it completely works. But overall, this is the way to go. Yes, I'm having a little bit of butterfingers today, but it's okay. We're working through it. Okay, now we got this all done, let's go ahead and start bending some of the other things we need to bend here and hopefully avoid messing with that front too much more. The tops here all need to be bent down, so let's go ahead and do that. Again, being very careful not to squish any of the details that we have already bent. Okay. There we go. Okay. And now that we got those bent, we can add part 15 on here. Just like the other ones, we're gonna grab the little sides here. These are very tiny pieces today we're working with. It's like just like the Ecto 1, we started off with some really tiny spots instead of bending anything nice and big. It's a big change from what we're normally used to. Normally, they give you something a little easy to start off with, and then when you're in the center of the build is where you get all the fun details. These last two builds have been a really different thing. And again, the paint is really wanting to come off on this. That is a shame. You know, we've bent so many models from Metal Earth over the time, and it just looks like these ones are just not wanting to be my friends. Look at that. Look how much paint just came off. And I didn't even do that much bending detail on it. That's a shame. All right, let's go ahead and put this on top. We can always touch up the paint, of course, with a black marker or anything else like that. But at the same time, when you're building these models, you don't necessarily want to do that. Okay. Come back in here. A little twist. again. A little twist. Shoot, I accidentally touched this detail. I knew it was going to be hard, man. This little ribbon details are so... Like, what in the world, man? What in the world? All right, we're good. Okay. Now, no. No, we're not good. This bent. Fudge. Okay. Let's see if we can correct it. Again, this metal is just so thin that even the parts here that just have a little bit of laser edge detail get bent in that. That is not okay. That is not fun, but it's still able to do some stuff. We can still get it worked out. It's just a real pain in the butt to get everything worked out. Now that we're here though, we can, of course, bend the big bends here. And I'm very happy to be almost finished this because I'm ready to work on the deck. Oh my gosh, it fell off again. Okay, let's just put this down for a second here, and we're gonna form the rest of this beast. Okay. And that's squared off like that. Okay. No connections though, eh? No connections at all. Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll leave that right there for right now. We're gonna grab this little piece here. This is gonna go one of the last little pieces on top, actually. And we want to make sure that we're bending it towards we want to make sure that we're actually having this bend with the color on the outside. That's a very important piece here. Okay, like this. See, again, you gotta be really careful. All right. You know what I want to know is if they've gone back and changed the metals in some of the other models, because, you know, I'll be honest with you, if they did go back and change some of them, I would think that they would actually make the models even harder than they were before, especially some of our figures that we have to build. Those guys, the metal being a lot thinner than it was before, would make those puzzles would make those models a lot more difficult than they were before. That's for sure. Okay, there we go. We're gonna take this and we're gonna just turn it. Yeah. All right, there we go. Okay, now let's try putting this back on. All right. Maybe now with this having actually like some footing on it, it might be able to easier to hold. I should make some laser sounds. It's definitely cured right now. I'm just giving it a little bit more extra time just because, you know, I like to be a little bit more on the ball. But anyway, there we go. We are all set with our piece here. It looks pretty good. Of course, we're gonna need to make some small adjustments. I do believe like this guy up here, we need to have it kind of come back a little bit more like that. And we can, of course, do any adjustments like this to make it even look even better than it is right now. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm a little disappointed with the black being gone there, but let's move on. Let's move on. Put this down right here for right now. We're not gonna need it for a little bit. I'm actually really curious about how you guys handled that last piece. Did you have a break too? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to know how you conquered that spot. All right, now this is where we start putting on jets, which is really cool. And we need to make sure that we put the right ones on there. I know right now some of them might look the same. They're not. They are not the same. The jets all have different kinds of patterns on them. Some of them have little black tails here. Now I've gone ahead and folded some of these, but as you can see with the back tail here, this one here has like the two little black pieces there. Well, the same thing can be said for these ones right here. When we look at those, they don't have any black pieces. So they are different. And of course, there's all different kinds of planes here for us to be able to attach onto the deck. So just be mindful that where you're placing these does matter. So now that we have this, we do need to put that one big piece on there, but we're gonna wait until we get all the planes in place. And I'm gonna show you guys how we're gonna go about bending these planes. Or I should say jets. They are jets. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna go right to the edge here, and we're going to bend down the tabs just like that. But we have to make sure again that we're going all the way in there and grabbing as much of the arm as possible before bending it. If we don't do that, we're going to run into some issues when it comes to putting them in place. Now that we got this guy here, we're going to attach 13 of these babies. So again, making sure it's in the proper orientation. That's a key point here. Now, if you're like me and you don't want to be fumbling around too much with putting these planes in place, what you do is you want to get a nice little small pair of tweezers like this. And then once you get one tab in, you can pretty much just grab the other side and place it inside the insertion hole. And that gives you a really good little link there. Now I'm going to kind of push mine nice and even there with the deck and come down here, and we're going to give these two guys a twist. So one, and then we're going to go counterclockwise for our other one here. There we go. So again, clockwise, counterclockwise, and we got our first jet in place. Awesome. We're going to grab another one here, and we're going to put this one to the other side. Clockwise, counterclockwise. Okay, now that I've shown you how to put these two jets on, let's go ahead and fast forward to where we're at the last one here. All right, there are our 13 planes. And actually, if you can count quickly, there's only 12 here. I seem to have lost someone somewhere. I'm hoping to be able to find it before we actually have to put everything on, but we'll see how this goes. Okay, so with our jets in place, we can now take our piece from earlier and place it into place, being very careful not to squish any of that beautiful detail that we formed or have our little front piece there fall off again. Putting some back pressure on that. And now, okay. We have to push this more back in, but I'm really worried about this whole control area here. It's not the greatest in terms of its thickness, and I'm a little bit worried about how the detail's going to go around it, but now that it's secure, it should be okay. So we need to move on to our next couple of pieces, starting off with parts 19. Now 19 looks like this, and this kind of supports the original bridge. So we're going to take this guy here. Let's take our tweezers, take our pliers here, our bigger ones. And I'm going to try to use it as a brake the best I possibly can. There we go. Looking good. Okay. Now that we got this piece, we can put this right beside our command center. Give these guys a nice little twist. Right. There we go. Now we can bring this guy here. And this is like an interesting little platform, I gotta mention. This is quite the interesting little platform. Let's move you over here for right now. Take our smaller guys here. So let's bend this down. Okay, being very careful again not to bend these. That's about right. Okay, and we also need to put a little radar on top of this piece. And you can see how this one keeps popping back out, and that's because there's nothing securing it. So we just gotta bend it a little more. Now you can see that this piece here has a lot of little tiny sleeves on it. We're gonna try to grab them like that. Not easy by any means. Okay. And now we're gonna fold it this way. And again. Okay. That looks about right. I don't think that's how it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to have a little bit more of a square on it. But I'm going to put together right now. I'm going to come back to this in a bit and see if exactly how that was supposed to be done. Because to me, it doesn't make much sense the way that it's going on there right now, to be totally honest. So, okay. This needs to go like that, because it looks like it's supposed to be flat. But if it's supposed to be flat, then how exactly... I don't know. There's something weird there. There is something weird there, but we'll figure it out. Excellent. Keep dropping everything everywhere. I'm all Butterfingers today. Been Butterfingers all morning. Okay, grab this guy here, come around the back. Okay, now we got that inserted, give it a little twist. And there we go. Not bad at all. We got some good looking detail here. And now we gotta add a few more things on. And what I mean by things, I mean by jets. And just like the previous one thing I forgot to mention about the last one is you're supposed to bend the wings up. And you'll actually see that right here. I did unfortunately forget to mention that. So make sure you bend all these wings up, otherwise they're gonna be overlapping. Now we're gonna be working on a different set of jets, and these jets do not need to have their wings bent. Or I should say, they shouldn't have their wings bent. There's no need to do it, there's no space to do it, therefore you don't need to do it. But all we do is the same thing we did last time, come around to this corner here, and just make sure that they're both bent like that. Very good, very simple. And once you have all of them bent there, it's pretty easy to move on to the next step. Now, these jets here are all gonna go on the bottom, right here. That's where they're gonna go. And it's pretty much the same thing we've done last time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these pieces here, and I'm gonna make sure that they go underneath. So they get a slight little bend like this, and then this little guy here, this little guy here gets bent up, and that's about right. Now these little tabs here, we're gonna bend 90 degrees. Okay. There's one. Grab the tab here, bend that up. Grab the other tab, bend that up. There we go. Awesome. And these guys get attached to the front here, but underneath. Of course, make sure that your points are facing towards the outside of the ship and not towards the inside. Okay, there's one on there. That was not easy. Just fiddling these little parts sometimes, and also trying not to damage any of the other pieces that we've already put together, it seems to be a real struggle. Again, I really don't like that command center. I feel like the metal is just so thin. It's so thin, and that's not normal. Or I should say it wasn't normal for a while. Now, again, I've heard about the manufacturers changing. I've heard about the manufacturers changing a few times from other people. And while I haven't validated that yet, I could see how these builds are definitely a lot more challenging because of that. And again, like I said earlier, I wonder if all the other builds, and I guess they are, all the other builds are changed as well, because that would make like some of the figures super hard. It would make them a lot harder. And being that I built them with a thicker metal, or at least what I think was a thicker metal, it would be very different to go back and try to do those now. Okay, so now that we have this in place, all we gotta do is put our planes in place. And because most of these are kind of the same thing, I'm gonna show you some of them, and then I'm gonna do a little bit more YouTube magic here, so you don't have to sit here and watch me do the same thing over and over again. I'm gonna be punished with it. If you're building at home, you're gonna be punished with it. I don't think we both need to watch each other getting punished at the same time, do we? No, I don't think so. So let's fast forward a little bit here in just a moment.
So we'll fast forward here in just a moment. The trick with these ones is really just to make sure that you have the entirety of the tab inserted, because if you don't, you're going to have some wonky looking ships here. So make sure that every one of these is inserted correctly and that they're inserted to those little notches on the tabs themselves. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay, there's two. And there we go. We have our jets all nice and placed. Now we got to put some more on here. And these ones look a little bit different, but they're bent the same way. They just go in a different place here. So 3 of them are going to go right here on the front. And they're a lot wider. So let's see if we can bring our tweezers in here again and make this a little easier on ourselves. Okay. One twist, and again, I'm always going the opposite. So if I do one clockwise, I do the other one counterclockwise. Okay, so here's our jet. Looks like this, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna grab these tabs. Ooh, I accidentally bent the front there. So easy to do. Grab this, push it right down. Same thing with this one. Right down 90 degrees. They should be equal. If they're not equal, that means you bent one too short. Then we're going to go on the other side here and we're going to bend this up. And we're going to come on the other side here and bend this up. Just like that. Now I don't do mine directly up. I always kind of cant it just a little bit. There we go. And that, my friends, is how we do a jet. And now it's a matter of getting all these in place, just like we've done with our other ones. Now this one is actually a flat guy here, so I'm going to make sure this is actually flat. One of these is supposed to be flat, not have the bent wings. So I'm going to do this. Like that. And now she's flat. It looks like there's a tab under here too, so that's not good. That means that later on down the road, we're going to be putting another tab underneath here, and getting access to this is going to be a pain in the butt. But we'll get it done. At the very least, you'll see me fail together. At the very least, we will fail together. Okay. Now, because we are mindful of that tab, what we're going to do is try to bend these out of the way so that when it comes to putting it in place, we're pretty good. So there we go. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, now we're going to put one of our surveillance planes over here. And I actually have, again, already bent these ones, but I'll show you how to bend the other ones in a moment. Left and right. There we go. Excellent. Looking great. Now, again, with this one here, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the little things that we got to bend down. So you can see there's a little wheel right here. We're going to take that, bend it straight down. Then we're going to come to this side here, same thing, going right to that tail section and bending it straight down. Same thing on this side, right to that tail section, bend it straight down. There we go. And now we're going to do this, like this. Okay, awesome. And that's all you gotta do for the surveillance planes. They're not entirely too hard, but to have a couple of them here is a nice little thing. Now, on the back, like I said, we do have an extra plane. So what I'm gonna do, okay, so these guys here are going, that little guy here, I'm gonna place over with these guys because I don't want an open spot. And it might be a little different, I know, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna say that there was somebody who was putting the jets in place and like they just forgot and they put the wrong one over here. Cool. All right. Now getting back to our surveillance planes. When it comes to these big dudes with the big dishes on them, what we actually need to do is shape them a little bit more than just your typical one that we had before. These ones need to be folded a little bit differently, and I'll show you how we do it. If I can grab it, of course, that would be that's the first step, is grabbing the actual tool that we need. What we're gonna do, so we're gonna take these guys here and we're gonna bend them like this, and then we're gonna bend them back, okay? Like this, there we go. You only wanna do this once, and you wanna make sure the paint is towards the outside. So like this, and then back. Okay, there we go, there's one. Same thing with this one again. Bend, fold back. Do your best to match it up with that back there. Okay, now that we got these guys all nice and bent up, we can actually put them into place here. So, these guys are actually all kind of slightly canted, so I'm gonna need a little help here. You know, a lot of people complain about the repeat detail in some of these builds. I can see that with this one here, with all the jets being a little bit of a pain in the butt, but honestly, I really want to try the Harry Potter castle, because I've heard that the castle is a real pain in the butt when it comes to repetition. And I could see that, especially with all the windows on it. I could definitely see that. But so far with this one, I really like the details on here. My only problem, like I said, has been the fact that everything just feels very fragile. And with this build being the way it is, that's a pain in the butt. It shouldn't be. The metal, I mean, again, you want, there's a bit of a give and take here. You want the metal to be good. I'm also wondering if maybe the metal changed for the coloring, because we all like the color models. I know a lot of people like the Sterling models too. I'm a fan of both, but I'm wondering if the color sticks better to certain kinds of metals, and that's why they've changed it, as opposed to just kind of cheapening out. I saw that on the Reddit there a few times, people saying, oh, they've cheaped out and whatever. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I'm not going to say it's 100%, but it's a possibility that they did it to be a little cheaper. But I really think that the reason why it's such a different feel is because the color itself, it's really hard to get metal to stick with color. It's a very difficult process, especially with metal that we're going to be bending. Like, once it's painted, you really don't want to bend metal, right? So this is a difficult one. I maybe should have started with this one. There we go. All right. Excellent. Okay, all of our surveillance planes are in place, all of our jets are in place, and we're looking really good. Now we need to move on to this little guy here, which might be a nice little change after all that detail that we just did. Now, looking at this, you can see that we have some curves to do. You have to make this kind of curved, and we have to have this kind of connect in here. My suggestion for this is to have something like a dapping set, like this guy right here, to give you a hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a couple of different sizes here, and that should help me. First off is this guy right here. So I'm going to just kind of pre-bend a little bit, and I bent it in a direction that will kind of help me with my end piece. Again, I'm not expecting these sides to be necessarily done, but right here it is important. And this is because they're going to go into the model insertion holes on the other side. So and I won't be surprised if we have to do this a couple times. Like, I'm just giving him a quick bend here, but I know that once we start getting into it, I'm going to probably have to play the game a little bit more. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to go like this, flip it around. And we're going to do one of these little maneuvers here. Kind of doing a quick little roll. Quick little roll. I'm actually going to do one of these because I want this to kind of come up a little bit. Okay. Again, we're going to have to probably do some more curving on this. I don't doubt it. But you don't want to have it fold in half. So there's a kind of, again, a give and take here that you kind of have to play with. And what I'm going to do is try to get this in place. And this should almost give me a little bit of a guide to know exactly how much more I need to bend. I'm going to go ahead and start securing these tabs as well. Little tab here. There we go. All right, now we can kind of give this all a little bit of a match and make up. There we go. Excellent. That looks great. Yes. All right. And that, my friends, is the end of page 1 and the first part of our video. I had a lot of fun building all of this with you, and if you guys have had a good time, don't forget to press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of cool projects coming on in the future, and I would love to be able to have you there. How have you done with this? Let me know in the comments down below. I love reading them, and if you need a helping hand, I might be able to suggest something to make it a little bit easier for you. Until our next part, keep building.